Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is a pleasure to have everyone in our sanctuary this evening, a pleasure to have our virtual community joining us on Zoom and on YouTube, and truly my pleasure to be sharing the Bima this evening with Cantor Jennifer Benray and her beautiful voice and incredible spiritual music that she's going to bring to our service this evening. For those who don't know me, my name is Josh Greenbaum. I am not the rabbi, although I can play a convincing one in a tallis. I am the executive director here at Temple Har Shalom, and while our own Rabbi Masnitsky, who I am sure is joining us virtually, is away from the Bima over the course of the last few months, we are all taking turns trying to fill those incredibly gigantic shoes to the best of our abilities, and it is my pleasure to be joining you guys this evening for our Shabbat worship. We begin our service this evening in our Mishkan Tefillah, our blue Sidurim that you can find in front of you in your pews. We begin our service this evening on page 120 as we welcome in Shabbat with the lighting of our candles. Take a quick departure from the pages we are on to move to page 636. The cantor just sang for us a beautiful nigun, which is a wordless melody known to many of us by the Yababais or Yalalais or however it moves us. But the tune, the nigun that she just sang, accompanies the words on page 636 of Yedid Nefesh. So we ask you to join us in welcoming Shabbat. turn back to page 142 as we sing the words of Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharei, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Malachim Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Barchuni leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitzchem leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon,
On page 138 is a poem. We often think of it as a prayer or a song, but actually it is a poem written on the hills of Tzfat in the north of Israel as the Kabbalists, the mystics of Judaism, gathered on the hillsides to watch the sun set below the mountains and welcoming in the Shekhinah, the presence of the Shabbat bride. And so as we sing the words of Lecha Dodi, starting on page 138, you'll see at a moment the music will get soft and we'll invite everyone to rise. And that is the moment that we believe the Shabbat bride, the spirit of Shabbat, the presence of God, comes into the sanctuary and allows us to welcome in the blessing that is Shabbat. So together the words on page 138 of Lecha Dodi. invite you all to please rise. La 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 Continue standing on page 146 for the Baruch Hu.
You may be seated. On page 147, O God, you are as near as the very air we breathe, yet farther than the farthermost star. We yearn to reach you. We seek the light and warmth of your presence. Though we say you are near, we are lonely and alone. Oh, let our desire be so strong that it will tear the veil that keeps you from our sight. Let your light release our darkness and reveal the glory and joy of your presence.
On page 148, the words of the Ma'ariv Aravim are said only in our Shabbat evening worship. It's a prayer that thanks God and acknowledges the evening and the darkness and everything that comes with it. So together we join reading the words on page 148 of the Ma'ariv Aravim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim bechokma poteach she'arim ובתבונה משנה עתים, ומחליף את הזמנים, ומסדר את הכוכבים, במשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו, בורא יום ולילה, גולל אור מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב ערבים.
This is an hour of change. Within it, we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it, we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'aravim aravim. Page 150, Ahavat Olam.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אתה. תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. אהבת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אתה. תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, בשוכבנו ובקומנו, נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נהגה יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל.
Together we rise for pages 152 and 153 for the words of the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
You may be seated as we continue with the words of the V'ahavta on page 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום ושיננת לבניך, ודיברת בם, וישיבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרת מאוד על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
I was reading something recently about the 10 plagues on Egypt, a little early for Pesach reading, but I was there. And it was an explanation as to the plagues potentially all being environmental tragedies lined up one after the other. So saying, you know, if we're trying to reconcile the actualness of the plagues with what could have actually happened even for non-believers in the spiritual nature of it, could it have been a pollution of the river that coincided with a disease of the animals, which coincided with a eclipse in the dark, and all these kind of things led together. And my thought was, in thinking of the words of the Micha Mocha on page 158, what does it matter if these things were created by environmental moments or God or the spiritual force behind it? As the Israelites get ready to cross into the Red Sea and they look upon them with the sea split in the middle, does it matter at that point if they are saying, Mi chamocha ba'alim Adonai? Who is like you, O God? Would it be that different if they said, Mi chamocha ba'alim ba'olam? Who is like you, world? Is there even a delineator there? So as we sing the words of Mi chamocha, I think about the song that the Israelites were singing for whoever they wanted to thank for that moment, for whoever was giving them the awesome power of that moment. It didn't matter. It was the spiritual force behind it. It was the miracle that happened in front of them. It was their freedom unfolding on the shores in front of them. And what came to their lips were the words of the Micha Mocha.
Yaakov,
the song of men and women, joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. Page 160, the words of the Hashkivenu. Ask God to provide us comfort and shelter, even in times of hardship.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Ushmor tzitzeinu, uvuinu, l'chaim v'shalom, mi'etzav v'yod olam. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim.
You find the words that start tefillah, the Amidah, the prayer, on page 164. A part of the service that for many of us is so rote, we could say it with our sidorim closed. And there are some who say that's the purpose of it, that it's supposed to be a true meditative state, still left over from a time in our history when Judaism was split between the camps of the esoteric, the Kabbalists that we talked about from Sfat, and the more linear rabbinic thinkers. And yet the tefillah is here sung the same way, with the same words, at every service we go to, almost to allow us, as we take our steps back and steps forward into it, like an aliyah, like a lifting up into a different state so that we can have that moment of contemplation, of prayer, and of spirituality. So on page 164, we invite everyone to rise for the words of the Amidah that will take us all the way through page 170.
Adonai, Hashiv haruach mori hagashem mechakel chayim bechesed mechayei hakol berachamim rabim somech nochim berotei cholim u'maitir asurim u'mekayem emunato l'ishei afar michamocha ba'al gevurot u'midom elach melech mevit u'mechayeh u'matziach Yeshua Pre'emanat ha'chayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai mechayei hakol Atah kadosh shimcha kadosh u'kedoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
May be seated. On page 178, we read the words of Shalom Rab, and we learn, of course, that on Shabbat we are not allowed to ask for anything, and yet here is this prayer asking for peace. You can see it right in the very first words, grant us abundant peace, and that is because peace is the utmost ask of God and the utmost ask of each other, and so even on Shabbat, we're allowed to ask for the ultimate gift.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam Ki Atah Melech Adon L'chol Shalom Ki Atah Melech Adon L'chol Shalom Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tazim Le'olam Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tazim Le'olam B'tov beinecha levarech את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשיא לעולם שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשיא לעולם, תשיא לעולם, תשיא לעולם.
We take a few moments now for the words of our hearts, what we're speaking in our souls. Silent prayer.
Always when we get together as a community, we turn our thoughts and prayers to those in need of extra healing. Could be healing of the mind, the body, the soul, spirit. And so we look at the words on page 371 of the Misha Berach. If there's anyone whose name you're thinking of right now for that extra bit of healing, I'll look around the congregation as my eyes meet yours. If you want to say their name out loud or say it in your heart, together we'll join with the words of the Misha Berach after, with all those names mentioned.
מי שבטח אבותינו, אברהם, יצחק ויעקב. מי שבטח אמותינו, שרה, רבקה, לאה ורחל. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. מי שבטח אבותינו, אברהם, יצחק ויעקב. מי שבטח אמותינו, שרה, רבקה, לאה ורחל. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
This week's parashah, this week's Torah portion, we're still in the beginning of the story. We're still in Genesis. The parashah is Vayetze, which literally means, and he left. And it's the story of Jacob that we've become familiar with, the sibling rivalry between Jacob and Esau, the fake out of the blessing that we read about last week in Toldot. Jacob leaves, and he's wandering, and he finds a spot, literally a place. The word in Hebrew they say is makom. He finds this spot, and he goes to sleep. It's the spot from where Abraham was first able to see the mountain on which he was called upon by God in the binding of Isaac. It's the spot that Jacob will flee from his brother. It's the spot where he lays his head on the stone, and he has that famous dream. It's the dream of the stairway linking earth and the heavens, and he awakes transformed by the vision. He awakes from the dream and he declares to no one in particular, because there's no one there, "Achen yesh Adonai b'makom hazeh v'anochi lo yadati." Surely God is in this place, and he repeats himself, I did not know it. Jacob finds the divine presence on a rock in the middle of nowhere. And yet it remains surprising to me how difficult it can be for us, myself included, to encounter God, the Spirit of God, the Shekhinah, the presence, the connection between us all, whatever name you want to give to it, how difficult it is for us to find that presence on a day-to-day basis. How difficult it is to find God in the sanctuary. During worship services, no matter how beautiful, especially the cantor's voice, we sometimes find ourselves distracted. We feel a sense of community in here gathered together, but sometimes we just don't feel the presence of God. The same could be said about our day-to-day lives. Put more succinctly in the words of Rabbi Martin Lawson, the Rabbi Emeritus of Temple Emmanuel in San Diego, where is God's place for us who are often adrift on the turbulent sea of secularism? There's a lot going on in our lives on a daily basis. There was a lot going on for Jacob as he left his family and wandered into the middle of nowhere, and yet he found the presence whilst asleep on a rock. So where is God's place for us? The answer, I think, once again comes from this week's parashah in two separate places, so you know it must be what the authors are trying to tell us. We read of the dream, one of the most famous midrash or interpretations of the parashah this week, that Jacob falls asleep and has this dream of angels ascending and descending from earth to heaven. The order of that, very particular. Right? Many things we don't believe, left to chance in our Jewish interpretations, and this is no exception. He doesn't dream that the angels are descending and ascending, meaning the angels are not from heaven. The angels are ascending and then descending. The angels are amongst us. They're here on earth. And so who are these angels that we read about that are on the earth? Again, we read about it from the parashah. Jacob wrestles with an angel of God, so we're told. He wrestles all throughout the evening, and at the end, after the wrestling, the angel says, "No longer will you be known as Jacob, you will now be known as Israel." And Cantor and I, this week, were just talking about this parashah and this moment in the story because, as she pointed out, I think very astutely, we don't call him Israel anywhere else. We just sang about Abraham, Yitzhak, and Jacob.
I'd like to take credit for that, but that was Linan.
Was it Lynette? Okay.
It
It
was Lynette.
was Lynette. So there we go. So it was a conversation at our staff meeting. But I thought very interesting that why is he called Israel? Why is such a big deal made of this rename? And my thought is it goes hand in hand with what we're trying to be taught, which is that Jacob represents not just Israel, but Am Yisrael, the people of Israel. We know that song often from the one that we sing, Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel live. But when we're talking about the Jewish people, regardless of where we live in modern day of the world with the country of Israel and the country of America, we call ourselves Am Yisrael, the people of Israel, the people of Jacob. Why is that there? In my mind, it's to teach us that the angels are not just walking amongst us. They're us. They're Jacob. They're you, they're me, they're everyone who stood at Sinai. We are the connections to God. Lawrence Kushner writes, there is another world right here within this one whenever we pay attention. And that the trick is to remember after you descend what you understood when you were once high on the ladder. That's not to say our lives are always angelic, far from it. In fact, Rabbi Simcha Bunim, the great Polish Hasidic master from the turn of the 19th century, had a very famous teaching. He said, everyone should have two pockets. I did this for a while. I had it on a card that I used to keep in my wallet. Everyone should have two pockets and a note in each of those pockets. When feeling lowly and depressed, discouraged or disconsolate or desolate of the world, you reach into the right pocket and you pull out the piece of paper that says, Bishli nivra ha'olam, the world was created for me. And when feeling high and mighty, like nothing can knock you off your pedestal, you reach into your left pocket and you find the words, Venochi afar ve'efar, I am but dust and ashes. There are surely times when we feel lonely and isolated in this world, especially in the last year and a half. And we feel like dust and ashes. But there are places and moments when and where we feel that we are at the center of the universe, in the meeting point where heaven and earth touch, when we are the very angels of God. Jacob had that experience in the moment, and his life was forever changed. May we each be so uniquely blessed. Can you hear that song? We continue on page 586 in our service as together we rise for the words of the Aleinu. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. This evening, we have many people in our thoughts. We remember the art sites of William John Delahanty Sr., Sandra Ehrenberg, Beverly Libskund, Marilyn Meiselman, Edward Milder, Esther Nichter, Louise Pressman, Louis Rosenberg, and Helen Schneiderman. And we remember those who were taken in most recent days, those in Shloshim: Rhoda Shiner, mother of Art Shiner; Ruth Weisel, grandmother of Rob Dix; Linda Rogalowski, companion of Fred Bierman; and one taken in the last hours, Joy Eckenthal, mother of Craig Eckenthal. As we look around the room, as my eyes meet yours, if there's the name of someone who you wish to be remembering their yahrzeit, their memory, feel free to say their name out loud. And together at the end, we'll stand together so that no mourner stands alone, and continue with the words of the Mourner's Kaddish on page 598.
We join now together as one community as we rise, if able, for Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach yirtei v'yalmich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'kol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach ve'alam ramei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtapach v'yitpa'ar v'yitnomam v'yitnasei, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei d'kudisha b'reichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, ta'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imroma, u'ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all of Israel. And together we say, Amen.
Amen.
You may be seated. do. It has truly been a pleasure this evening to share the Bima with Cantor Benray. It's always an honor and a true pleasure to be able to welcome in the Shabbat with her.
And you.
Thank you. We do have a couple highlights for some upcoming dates in the community, but a quick reminder, there is a new innovation we're using for our Shabbat announcements. There's no more handouts as we're trying to go green and also be mindful of the times of COVID that we're in. So there is a credenza right outside the sanctuary on which there's a QR code. If you simply point your phone camera at that QR code, you can be directed to have these announcements at home and read them all night long if you'd like. But in case you choose not to, I will still highlight a couple upcoming events. This Sunday, November 14th, is our Lifelong Learnings Kristallnacht Weekend Holocaust Commemoration. Jessica Wang, a THS member, former past president, and Lisa Margolis will be joining us at 1:30 to share their grandparents' stories of survival as they are what are called third generation survivors. At 2:30 p.m., we'll have a daffodil bulb planting that is part of the Worldwide Living Memorial for Children Lost in the Holocaust. The bulbs are actually delivered today in our office. We're going to plant them right outside so they can bloom this spring. So we hope you will join us on what hopefully will be a chilly but beautiful Sunday. Next Friday, November 19th, is the first of a new innovation that we're trying, our multi-generational Shabbat at 6:30, so about a half hour earlier next week. It's a great service for family members of all ages, not geared towards kids, not geared towards adults, geared to our multi-generational community, so we hope you will join us there. November 20th is a busy day here. We have an adult Torah study and a Tot Shabbat, so adult Torah study open to anyone who wants to participate, and Tot Shabbat for youngest in our community, about 2 years old to 5 years old. You can register for both and find more information on our website. And of course, you can always look for our Together B'Yachad newsletter and Friday Shabbat message would have all this great information. And finally, while we cannot yet offer a full oneg of sharing food together, we do encourage everyone to schmooze. There is a oneg to go bag sitting on that same credenza where you can find the QR code. And there are a few treats there for you to enjoy at home so that this Shabbat can be extra sweet. So Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. So we're going to add a bit of sweetness to our service as we say the blessing over the wine or grape juice. Today's grape juice.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho v'yavo u'ratzon hinchilanu. Zikaron le'maseh bereshit, ki hu yom tehillah le'mikra'ei kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, ki banu v'chata ve'otanu kidashta mikol amim, ve'shavat kodshecha ve'ava u'ratzon chinchatanu. Baruch atah Adonai v'chadesh ha-shabbat. L'chaim.
L'chaim. In our hermetically sealed challah. Pre-sliced, so it is COVID friendly. We'll leave it outside so everyone can have a little slice.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avon.
Te'avon, Shabbat Shalom. Pleasure seeing everyone this evening. Again, don't forget to grab an oneg to-go bag on the way out. But before we do, we are going to close with the same nigun that we open with, because we always want to leave with a little bit of song.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.